Okay.
Okay.
Just tape it. You have to tape it, Michelle. I can only hold. I don't even know. Kara, thank you so much. We're taking the liberty of putting a ribbon on this panel that came from Hiroshima. Well, Michelle Peppers is the executive director of the Ribbon International, and the ribbon went around the Pentagon in 15 miles of these. Well, the numbers change, but using the tip and a whole lot more. Hello, everyone. We are so thrilled to be at St. Bartholomew's. And we are going to start with one of the reasons that we are here, because in 1945, on August the 6th, at 8:15, there was a bomb that was dropped. And we are going to remember those people. So I'm just going to ask you to stand, put your things down, as I welcome Reverend T.K. Nakagaki, Peace Ambassador from Hiroshima, to start with us remembering August 6th, 1945.
Thank you, Monica. And so this is, date August 6th today. So just today is the one that we had. And this is actually, I have been doing this anniversary in New York from 1994 every year. And then so this year makes my 30th time to do. So actually I made a special, somebody, from Japan, donated this bell. And this is one of the places was made the 90% of this kind of bell in Toyama, Yamaguchi Kyujo-san. So they just donate this one with the word, which is the one that I wanted to make sure we know. You know, we always talk about peace, but also this words is words from the Prince Shotoku, like 1400 years ago. There's a peace constitution was held in Japan that was created, and then that's what it says: peace without violence or without conflict. And then this part may be missing somehow. We talk about peace, but yet we fight with the meaning of the peace. So I want you to keep in your mind that's I think is very important to have a non-violence, the area, or compassion, you can say. So with that, I would like to ring the bell, maybe 3 times together. The first bell for Hiroshima, second bell Nagasaki, the third one, no more, we don't want to ring the bell, so I don't know what do you think, but then at least you can ring the bell for peace within yourself for the third one for today, okay? Thank you. Please join me in prayer. Peace to you all, and thank you very much. Thank you, Monica.
TK is going to be bringing this bell to another service at 1, and he's carrying the hearts and prayers from St. Bart's. And on that, we get to welcome Dean Wolf.
Well, welcome. I'm Dean Wolf, and I'm the rector of St. Bartholomew's Church in the city of New York, or as what we like to kind of call it more low-key, St. Bart's. I hope you'll make yourself welcome here. The work that you all are doing is vital and important. I grew up in the Church of the Brethren, one of the historic peace churches, and this day was always commemorated in that denomination. When I was serving a church in Berkeley, California, under Bishop Bill Swing, I had a survivor from Hiroshima in the congregation, and that was a visible, tangible reminder of both the possibilities of peace and the terror of violence. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Make yourself at home, and I hope you come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Wolf. Your welcoming hospitality is just everywhere, and I thank you very much. We have an exciting way to open with an indigenous opening from Elise Joan Henry, and Elise means grandmother in her tradition. She sits on the council of the eagle, condor, katswa, and colibri, the four birds of the Americas. She is an actress, a singer, a songwriter, and native dancer, and beyond words. She holds the prayers of so many groups. One is a group of 22 women who gather monthly. And Joan starts the prayers, collects them, and carries them back to her native land. Joan is going to be our opener and also our prayer keeper for today. So our prayers and your prayers that will be called on later will be traveling with Joan later today. Elise Joan Henry.
I don't do this well, but I'm really loud. I think that's why the spirits used to hear it. We begin everything in our way by acknowledging and calling the attention of the others to ask us to do this. And that's what we're talking about. We also, when we call them, we are in the habit of thinking that you don't have to do this time, but when we say the prayers, and we're feeling, we feel why. This place. Oh, they're determined to put a mic somewhere near me, aren't they? Okay. I would say my manager would love this, but in real life. So I'm going to ask you all to consider the fact that you came here to pray. And for that purposes, we have a way of making, there are many ways, but we have a way taught to me by my elders once upon a time to bring those prayers into concreteness and to gather them up. And these prayers, I've been told, have to go to water. Sometimes they go to fire. But they get that much faster back up to the Spirit and back out to Mother Earth where she needs them. Okay? Am I making sense? I can't hear you. Hoa. So when we pray together at the end of this time, you'll be given you'll choose a little piece of sage from our sun dances. It could be a lot of things, but this really holds the prayers in a good way. And you'll focus your prayers because the stronger we are together, the more of one mind that we are together, the more quickly that Dohikasesti, peace over all Mother Earth, will become a reality. And we don't have time to waste because I have grandkids and they'll have grandkids. And I'm sure some of y'all have grandkids. So I'm just going to ask the spirits, because I don't do anything without asking them. I'm just going to check in with them and ask them to turn their faces towards us and their attention towards us, like that. Askaya galon ladi adanado ehiha edudi elisi ehiha Elohino echi ha galat lo eroda mutawa Gohi iga, gohi asahi, gohi iga, gohi asahi. Wara! Galieliga. Pat yourself down with that prayer if you will. Hoa. I look really forward to praying with y'all.
It's hard to follow a beautiful prayer like that. Thank you so much, Joan, for bringing in the indigenous spirits and bringing us together. We are now going to see a video that introduces us to Nuclear Prayer Day.
Each month, I have the great privilege of hosting a small group of diplomats, scientists, lawyers, religious leaders, and all of them are deeply involved in international nuclear weapons negotiations. I'd like you to meet these people, and then I'd like you to hear the prayer that we say whenever we get together.
I am Bill Perry. I'm a professor emeritus in the engineering school at Stanford University. I was the 19th Secretary of Defense of the United States, and before that, the Director of Defense Research and Engineering. My experiences through the years with nuclear weapons have made an indelible impression on me and convinced me that these immensely powerful weapons threaten no less than our own civilization. This has led me to make the primary task of my life working to ensure that they will never, ever be used again.
My name is Sidney Drill. I am a scientist, a physicist. Beyond my academic teaching and research career, I have spent many years as an advisor to the United States government on technical national security issues and nuclear weapons in particular. I recognize their almost unimaginable destructive potential and their capacity for destroying the human race. This is a capacity far beyond what we were created to acquire. And therefore, I believe and work to get rid of these weapons as soon as practical before they destroy humanity.
My name is George Shultz, former Secretary of State under President Ronald Reagan. And this is my own prayer. Dear God, please bring common sense and divine guidance to our work on the problems that nuclear weapons pose to our world. Man has invented a means to destroy us all. We must eliminate these weapons in order to preserve a sane and peaceful world. We pray for your help as we work toward this goal.
I am Ambassador James Goodby, and the bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki have shaped my soul and my professional life, from my participation in the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty to my present efforts at seeking to dismantle, jointly with the Russians, the nuclear weapons legacy of the Cold War. President Kennedy said, "Here on Earth, God's work must truly be our own." I think that God's work is to rid the world of the present nuclear threat.
I am Monica Willard. The issue of eliminating nuclear weapons has shaped my life as a peace activist and as the representative of the United Religions Initiative to the United Nations. Knowing that nuclear weapons can be used by choice or accident, and that they have the capacity to destroy our planet and everything we love, calls me to action. A world without nuclear weapons is protection. For the love of our children, grandchildren, and future generations, for the beauty of the natural world, for a safer future, I offer this prayer.
I'm Jonathan Granoff. As a young man interning for a congressman, I met then Senator Robert Kennedy. He told us how close we came to destroying civilization during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He told us that eliminating nuclear weapons before they eliminate us is the practical and moral litmus test of our time. For many decades since, I've worked as an activist, an international lawyer, and a human being to rid the world of this threat. We need each other to do this, and we need God's grace.
I am Ambassador Thomas Graham, first with the Soviet Union, and later with countries all over the world. I have participated in arms limitation policy development and negotiations on behalf of the United States of America. Always, the overarching objective has been to control and eventually eliminate all nuclear weapons. And although much has been achieved in the past 70 years, the sword of mass destruction still hangs precariously over our heads. As long as there is breath in my lungs and urgency in my heart, I intend to do all in my power to banish these ungodly weapons from the face of the earth.
The beginning and the end are in your hands, O Creator of the universe.
And in our hands you have placed the fate of this planet.
We who are tested by having both creative and destructive power in our free will
turn to you in sober fear and in intoxicating hope.
We ask for your guidance, and we wish to share in your imagination as we deliberate about nuclear force.
Help us to lift the fog of atomic darkness
that hovers so pervasively over our earth, your earth,
so that soon all eyes may see life magnified by your pure light.
Bless all of us who wait today for your presence
and who dedicate ourselves to achieve your intended peace
and rightful equilibrium on earth.
In the name of all that is holy and all that is hoped. Amen.
Amen.
Today, the doomsday clock stands at 3 minutes till midnight, the highest level ever recorded. Instead of global alarm and efforts at reduction, the opposite is happening. Nuclear nations are quietly gearing up to modernize and create new and more powerful nuclear weapons. Rogue nations are neglecting their citizens in favor of advancing their nuclear status. Rogue terrorist groups are frantically trying to obtain nuclear materials and weapons. Nuclear weapons are built to be used sooner or later. But rather than stepping back from the brink, the world is dashing to plunge over the cliff. In this moment of nuclear madness, what can we do? The nuclear experts whom I know pray. They live into the direction that their prayers take them. They become advocates, and they join with others to build a global voice of nuclear abolition. We invite you to do the same. Our little group is called Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons, and we are part of the United Religions Initiative. If we can help you find your voice, feel free to reach out to us at uri.org. In case you think that your moral, spiritual voice is in the minority, please know every major religious group in the world has called for the abolition of nuclear weapons. Follow the prayer that is in your soul. Raise your voice. Save the world.
Thank you. And as you can see, that film was made a few years back because this January, the atomic scientists moved the doomsday clock up to 90 seconds. So this is the time for you to add your voice, your prayer. And I am so honored that you are here with us today to bring our voices together in prayer for Nuclear Prayer Day. I'm Monica Willard, and I'm a part of Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. And we started Nuclear Prayer Day last year during the NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty review, to pray, to add that spiritual dimension. So this is our second annual one, and we could not have had a better place to do it than St. Bart's. So I would like you to join me in thanking Dean Wolf and all of the team here, Reverend Meredith, Cara, the different people. Thank you for your dedication, and let's just give St. Bart's a round of applause. I know thank yous come usually at the end, but we're starting with them. We started with the remembrance of Hiroshima, and I would just like to add that this is a ribbon, a peace ribbon, that was made in Hiroshima and gifted to the Ribbon International. Thank you, Michelle Peppers, for bringing this today. We are here to pray together, to add your voices and your prayers, and we're also here to thank the Parliament of the World's Religions for making this a pre-Parliament event. So you are here at an event that precedes the Parliament, which is next week. And Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons will be there. TK has a lantern ceremony on Wednesday night. There are events going on all week. But I would like to take just a minute to recognize the trustees from the Parliament of the World's Religions who are here with us. Bruce Knox, I know Kusamita Peterson is here. Can you just stand up, because we thank you for your work. And if there are other trustees that I don't know. We are here to add our prayers, which we will be doing collectively later on. But we have some voices for you to hear first. And it is my deep pleasure to be able to introduce you to URI's founder and President Emeritus. The Right Reverend William Swing is here with us today. You got a little introduction to him by Dean Wolf. It is wonderful to have family connections through prayer that we can build upon today. And so I ask Bill, actually maybe I should give you a little bit more of an overview of what we are doing today. We are going to have Reverend Swing start out with a message. He has 3 distinguished, that many of you know, responders, not just to his message, but to their heart. Because the idea for us today is to add our prayer, our voices, our hopes to a world free of nuclear weapons. So I will introduce the respondents afterwards, but right now, we have the pleasure of meeting the Right Reverend William Swing from San Francisco. We thank you for coming out here, and we welcome you, Bill. In order to make it really applicable for everyone, and we need to speak right into the microphone because there are wonderful people following us on Zoom and Facebook. So if we need to adjust the microphone, I'm going to be right here to do that with you.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah, about 15 years ago, George Shultz and Bill Perry and Sid Drell and Jonathan and Monica and several of us started praying once a month. We've prayed every month for 15 years. So then we had a prayer that we said at the beginning of every session, so that became our nuclear prayer. And we decided, well, why don't we call August the 6th Nuclear Prayer Day? And last year we started that, and people from all over the world joined in with their prayers, and now we're building on it. Jeneth, who's here someplace, she's working on that right now. In addition, this is a little bit off to the side, but germane. We wanted to make sure that young people got the message, and young people brought their energy to all of this. So 4 years ago, we started a youth award. Mikhail Gorbachev and George Shultz came together with us in our group, and they added their legacy to this. So it's the Youth Award legacy of George Shultz and Mikhail Gorbachev, and we are today, on this day, announcing the fourth winner of that. Beforehand, up to now, we've been honoring young people who worked with a large agency over here and a large agency over there. But this year, we're going very grassroots. And I will announce the winner of it. This year, it's Yogav von Kundra. And he's from Tennessee, obviously. Yogav is a young farmer in East Tennessee using ancestral wisdom, natural systems, and perennial polycultures to farm 10 acres of vegetables and fruits and raise cows and goats. And as a registered behavioral technician, he teaches skills to autistic young youth, hoping to make tangible improvements in their lives, environments, and families. Historically, now, I want to give you some background here. Historically, East Tennessee has a deep history regarding nuclear weapons. For instance, nearby in Oak Ridge, Tennessee in 1945, the Y-2 National Security Complex was created and became part of the Manhattan Project for the purpose of enriching uranium for the first atomic bomb. Today, there are plans to modernize Y-12, and local community peace activists have, since 1988, carried out peaceful protests against the work and see it as integral to the global nuclear threat. In the spirit of peaceful protest, Yogav led a first ever rally against the bomb outside the Erwin, Tennessee courthouse, where the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was meeting recently. Also on Earth Day, he talked about the weapons of mass destruction to lots and lots of young people, and dozens of children made their origami peace cranes. Yogav said, "With respect to my elders and mentors, I walk in their footsteps and put my hope in youth like myself to carry the torch of progress together." So, today I make the announcement that the fourth winner of the Youth Award, named after Gorbachev and Shultz, is Yogav von Kundra. Thank you. Now, I've got a lot to say about prayer and nuclear weapons, but I'm not going to talk for very long. You can applaud now. I have a friend, General James Mattis. He and I gave a symposium not long ago at Stanford University talking about peace. A bishop looks at peace and a general looks at peace. What do we see? How do we get there? What's your domain? What's your domain? Where do we overlap? He's a very interesting fella, James Mattis. In Bob Woodward's book, Rage, he cites a day at the with Mattis as the Secretary of Defense when the President of the United States was meeting with the National Security Team. They were talking about nuclear weapons, where they could be used, what would happen next, and what would happen next. And James Mattis sat there and he listened to the conversation, participated in the conversation, and when the conversation was over, he got into a car. He drove in Washington, D.C. up to St. Albans Hill. He went into the National Cathedral. He knelt down in the Bethlehem Chapel and he prayed. Secretary of Defense, nuclear weapons. knows what's going on, so he prays. A couple of years ago, I wrote a child's nuclear prayer, which was not really for children, but about children. And it goes like this. This is all I'm going to say. In St. Petersburg, Russia, a little girl kneels down by her bed at night and says a prayer. In St. Petersburg, Florida, a little boy kneels down by his bed and says a prayer. They say the same prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. What could possibly cause the death of a Russian child and an American child at night as they sleep? The answer hovers over their beds in the dark, whirling around the world and aimed at them. Nuclear weapons. The nightmare that promises that a child could die before I wake. The children will never see the bombs. The warheads are hidden in submarines underwater. Some are underground and unapproachable, but they're real. Practically invisible, but they are part of the secret and dark universe that has been created to destroy those children and a lot of the world and maybe the world. In the name of security. Destroy it all in the name of security. Almost unimaginable, nevertheless, imagine. Imagine a nuclear torpedo designed to create a tsunami wave so high that it could contaminate the enemy's coastline cities with radiation for wide stretches. Imagine 27,000 miles in space, there's a little satellite the size of a school bus, which is the nuclear watchtower in the sky. Imagine a general flying around in an airplane called Looking Glass, armed with a go code to launch all nuclear weapons, all of our nuclear weapons. Imagine the President of the United States having minutes to decide whether to obliterate life as we know it, and then flying off in an aircraft called Doomsday. All this is true. We adults seem so childish playing with such evil beyond any scale of morality or common sense. Someday, it is possible to blow up the last children on earth. And we are building the weapons to do just that. Yes, the children in each St. Petersburg should pray as we do. Then again, maybe the 2 St. Petersburg children will wake up praying. Now I rise to face the storm and fight for children yet unborn. May I awake before I die and banish nukes and clear the sky. Forced to live with nuclear weapons dangling over our grandchildren, prayer is a legitimate choice for us because the only real deterrent to nuclear weapons is the God of life, whom we are invited to follow. Now, we have a couple of people, 4 people from our little group, 4 really great people, or maybe it's 3. to respond to me and to add their own comments because they have a lot to say. Jonathan, are you the first one? So Jonathan Granoff, please let's welcome him.
My brothers and sisters in faith, my brothers and sisters in reason, my brothers and sisters who believe in the rule of law, my brothers and sisters who believe in the unity of the human family, well, my brothers and sisters, as our Native Americans would say, and all my relatives, the whole web of life that we are now putting at risk. We are here today to pray, to protect, to preserve, and to honor that web of life. Albert Einstein said, "The unleashing of the power of the atom bomb has changed everything except our mode of thinking, and thus we head toward unparalleled catastrophe." General Lee Butler, who was the former commander-in-chief of the U.S. Strategic Air Command, in charge of the targeting readiness of the entire American nuclear arsenal, said, "Despite all the evidence, we've yet to fully grasp the monstrous effect of these weapons and the consequences of their use, defying reason, transcending time and space, poisoning the earth and deforming its inhabitants. They are inherently dangerous, hugely expensive, and militarily inefficient." He stated that accepting nuclear weapons as the ultimate arbiter of conflict condemns the world to live under a dark cloud of perpetual anxiety. Worse, it codifies mankind's most murderous instincts as an acceptable resort when other options for resolving conflict fail. I spent years studying the nuclear weapons effects, investigating a distressing array of accidents and incidents involving strategic weapons and forces. And then he lists a whole bunch of one bomb that accidentally fell in the Carolinas, and 6 out of 7 of the safety devices failed. Bombs that blew up in their silos. And since then, we've seen many incidents of misreading cloud formations that looked like launches that almost caused us to end civilization. Computer errors, accidents, or maybe sheer madness. I came away from that experience deeply troubled by what I see as the burden of building and maintaining nuclear arsenals, the grotesquely destructive war plans, the daily operational risks, and the constant prospect of a crisis that would hold the fate of entire societies at risk. It's no surprise that another member of our Voices Circle is former Secretary of Defense William Perry, and I commend anybody who wants a deep dive into the issue to go to his website, where he extensively articulates how close we are on a daily basis to do this. But we're here to talk about the morality. The International Court of Justice has unanimously ruled that there's a legal obligation to negotiate elimination. The 5 nuclear weapons states that are the permanent members of the Security Council have pledged the legal obligation to negotiate elimination in the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So there's obviously a legal duty and a practical duty. And they militarily can't use them. But what's missing is the spirit, and that's what our job is. That's what our job is to waken hearts to the moral issue, to the affront. Well, let me quote George Kennan, the so-called realist, right? The realist, the man who, realpolitik. You don't get anybody more than George Kennan, the architect of the Cold War theory of the Cold War itself. He said,
The readiness to use nuclear weapons against other human beings, against people we do not know, whom we've never seen, and whose guilt or innocence is not for us to establish. And in doing so, to place in jeopardy the natural structure upon which all civilization rests, as though the safety and perceived interest of our own generation were more important than everything that has taken place or could take place in civilization. This is nothing less than a presumption, a blasphemy, an indignity of monstrous dimensions offered to God. The mayor of Hiroshima testified before the International Court of Justice about what happened in his town. And he said the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki shattered all war precedent. The mind-numbing damage these weapons brought shook the foundation of human existence. The dropping of the nuclear weapon is a problem that must be addressed globally. The unity of the human family is the foundation of our work. But I want to give a sense of, that's the global, the big, but let's get to like some specific eyewitness testimony that gets more particular of what people saw, what happened. This is from an excerpt from the New York Times from Charles Pellegrino's book, The Last Train from Hiroshima, and I'm going to quote from it because it's vivid, and it should be vivid, because we have to face the truth of these weapons. Now eyeless and faceless, with their heads transformed into blackened alligator hides, displaying red holes indicating mouths. The alligator people did not scream. Their mouths could not form sounds. The noise they made was worse than screaming. They uttered a continuous murmur like locusts on a midsummer night. One man, staggering on charred stumps of legs, was carrying a dead baby upside down. And this is just one of thousands of testimonies of the horror of these weapons. And so we need to pray. So this is my prayer I want to share. I call it Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for whom the bell tolls. That Nagasaki be the last use of a nuclear weapon, that nuclear weapons never be used again. Oh God, bless and guide us to eliminate these devices, the apex of creative evil, and all devices of massive indiscriminate death. Please guide us. Each of us came into this world responding to our mother's love. Each came seeking family and love. Each of us became identified with nations, with race, with gender, with religion, and we forgot we are one human family. And every person, every life is as precious as our own. Still, in the stillness in our hearts remains a light of the soul, seeking, resonating, and longing for that love that brought all of us here into this world. That love awakens and informs our universal humanity, and it awakens hearts without borders. Intelligence has given us insights into the wondrous secrets of matter, energy, space, and time, but fear, ignorance, arrogance, pride, hatred, prejudice have led us to use these insights to create devices of incomprehensible power to inflict indescribable, horrific suffering. Please, dear Lord of all, creator of every life, every heartbeat, every moment, every leaf, blade of grass, every one of us, and universes and galaxies beyond counting, glorious source of life and love itself, forgive us for forgetting you and your blessings. You are the friend within all friendship, the love within all lives, the life within all lives, the witness of all and everything. Bless us with wisdom that comes from compassion such that we will skillfully eliminate these devices of death. And then use the gift of intelligence to serve, to heal, to sustain, to harmonize, to understand, and to glorify you, our humanity, and thus honor your creation. To end the suffering of poverty, to protect nature, to love one another, Remove the ignorance from our hearts and grant us hearts of gratitude, courage, and love such that we will never falter in bringing peace, justice, beauty, and unity to ourselves and thus to the human family. Help us eliminate these devices of death and the motives from which we create them. Please guide us in beautiful ways of peace, such that we can be witnesses to your goodness. Guide us with compassion, with kindness, with love and forgiveness, that we might become fully human. Because in this day and time in which we're the first generation that has to decide whether we will be the last, we need divine guidance. And as the Master said, knock, the door will be open. We have to knock. Thank you.
For those of you who've been around the UN for any amount of time, that was Jonathan Granoff. He is the president of the Global Security Institute and represents the World Summit of Nobel Peace Prize laureates at the United Nations. Thank you, Jonathan. I didn't get a chance to thank Bill before, and I think we all appreciated that wonderful invitation to pray and the reason that we're here. Next, we get to hear from Audrey Kitagawa, who is the president and founder of the International Academy for the Multicultural Cooperation, and she's president of the Light of Awareness International Spiritual Family. Audrey, we welcome you.
Thank you so much, and for making accommodations for someone so short as me. That's it. So maybe I need to lift it up. Okay. Can you all hear me? Barely. Okay. How is this? Better? Okay, great. Thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone. And I wish to express my deepest appreciation to all of the wonderful personnel who have allowed us to utilize this beautiful space of St. Bartholomew's Church and for hosting this beautiful venue for this event. And also the Right Reverend William Swing, who gave a beautiful sermon this morning, and also the Voices for a Nuclear Weapons-Free World, a URI cooperation circle, which is a primary sponsor for this event. And it is fitting that this Nuclear Prayer Day is being held here in Manhattan, as 78 years ago, this project that created the nuclear bombs was called, unfortunately, the Manhattan Project. But the actual work to develop the bombs were done primarily in 3 secret locations: Los Alamos, New Mexico, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Richland, Washington. It is also more than a coincidence that the newest movie to be released about the father of the nuclear bomb, Oppenheimer, is now playing in theaters. It is really a call to remember the horrific weapons of mass destruction and death that the United States created and has since proliferated from 1 country to 9 countries, having nuclear weapons with more countries and ambitions to become nuclear weapons states. And we must do our part in contributing our prayers and strengthening our moral compass and ethics. Nuclear weapons are a violation of every moral, ethical, and spiritual principle, and they must be abolished. not just restricted or contained, but abolished. And proponents of nuclear arms claim that they are for defensive, not offensive uses, but using them in retaliation is as immoral, as unconscionable as an initial attack. And the very existence of nuclear weapons is a threat to global security and the well-being of the entire planet. Even as we reflect on history and our current situation, we should also acknowledge the efforts made by conscientious citizens and organizations that have made great strides towards nuclear abolition and peace. After World War II, the United Nations was established here in Manhattan with the goals of peace, security, international cooperation, and dialogue. And the General Assembly identified the goal of nuclear disarmament in its very first resolution in 1946. And since then, the UN has provided forums for negotiating the elimination of nuclear weapons, condemned the use of nuclear weapons as a crime against humanity, and a violation of the UN Charter, assisted in negotiating the nuclear weapon-free zones, which now cover over half the territories of the planet, developed several multilateral treaties and instruments to regulate, restrict, or eliminate nuclear weapons, and help create a normative shift to the delegitimization of the use of nuclear weapons. Other sources of inspiration are the individuals and organizations awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to abolish nuclear weapons. In 1985, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War for spreading authoritative information about and creating awareness of the catastrophic consequences of nuclear war. In 1995, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Joseph Rotblat and the Pugwash Conferences on Science and World Affairs for their efforts to diminish the part played by nuclear arms in international politics and to eliminate such arms. In 2017, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons received the prize for its work to draw attention to the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of any use of nuclear weapons and for its groundbreaking efforts to achieve a treaty-based prohibition of such weapons. And I mention here our own dear Jonathan Granoff, who himself was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for his years of dedicated work on the abolition of nuclear weapons as the president of the Global Security Institute. Thank you, Jonathan. I applaud all of these selfless people and organizations that work tirelessly for peace and for a nuclear weapons-free world. As we gather here in St. Bartholomew's Church, it is fitting that we heed the powerful voices of religious leaders who have advocated for nuclear weapons disarmament and abolition, such as the Right Reverend William Swing, and Martin Luther King Jr., who said in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, "I refuse to accept the cynical notion that nation after nation must spiral down a militaristic stairway into the hell of thermonuclear destruction. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality." Pope Francis said, "I wish to reaffirm that the use of nuclear weapons, as well as their mere possession, is immoral. Trying to defend and ensure stability and peace through a false sense of security and a balance of terror, sustained by a mentality of fear and mistrust, inevitably ends up poisoning relationships between peoples and obstructing any possible form of real dialogue. Possession leads easily to threats of their use, becoming a sort of blackmail that should be repugnant to the conscience of humanity." And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, said, "A world without nuclear weapons is necessary and possible. In our interconnected world, violence brings suffering even to those far from conflict. I sincerely hope that we can all remember the oneness of humanity and recall that harming anyone with violence, including the use of nuclear weapons, harms us all. Desmond Tutu said, "Disarmament is not an option for governments to take up or ignore. It is a moral duty owed by them to their citizens and to humanity as a whole." We too must be voices of advocacy and inspiration. We have a moral obligation to do everything we can to protect and honor the sanctity of life, including rejecting nuclear weapons and advocating for their abolition. This is not just the responsibility of governments and world leaders, it is a responsibility and obligation of each and every one of us. Each person here today has the power to contribute to the tipping point in the court of public opinion, to persuade political leaders to remember that the sanctity of life requires the abolition of nuclear weapons and honoring all of our commitments to eliminate them. Each and every one of us has the power to effect change within ourselves and our own communities, and collectively, we comprise a concerned global community deeply invested in the well-being of all humanity and the health of our precious planet. Our concern extends to all living things, recognizing that our own well-being is inextricably intertwined with the well-being of Mother Earth, because we cannot thrive unless our planet thrives. And we all have the power to envision and create the world we desire. Through deep introspection, we can evolve, grow, and reaffirm our values and strengthen our commitment to a healthier and more secure world. We can chart a different course than that which governments may be pursuing, and as a collective voice based on deep foundational principles and spiritual values, turn the tide. Together, we build a safer, more compassionate world, a world that honors the victims and survivors of past atrocities, cherishes the present moment, and fosters hope for the generations to come. Let us pray. Divine Creator of all there is, who gave us the precious gift of immortal, eternal life, hear our prayers. Guide us, protect us, and grant us the heart of gratitude for the beauty of the earth and the abundant life forms that you have given to us to sustain life upon it, from the air to the water to the plants, animals, minerals, the human family, all teeming with life, vibrant, dynamic, and created in your pure and perfect love. Grant us your wisdom, O Lord, that we may know how to move from your love that is already within us and all around us. As with all things sacred and holy, may we respect it, honor it, cherish it. May we apply wisdom to abolish nuclear weapons and all weapons of death and destruction from earth, which includes our own daily habits of excesses, extraction, and waste that have also become weapons of destruction against our only home. Fill our hearts with love, that we may be fashioned into instruments of peace, kindness, love, and compassion, that we may be manifestations of your light, hope, mercy, and goodness, that we may be peacemakers who shall be called the children of God. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, peace, peace, peace. I use my voice for a world free of nuclear weapons. May God bless us all. Amen. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Audrey. I am pleased to be able to introduce another member of Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. Michael Ramos has just moved to New York. He moved to Ithaca and is the CEO of the community chest there. And he is in charge of the advocacy team for Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. Michael, we invite you up here now. Thank you. Better for him to adjust his. Not that I don't know how to do it.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here, and I feel at home. Thank you, Bishop Swing, for your leadership with United Religions Initiative and Voices, and thank you, St. Bartholomew's. I feel at home here for two reasons. One, I'm a native of New York City, and I walked here from my mother's apartment. And second, as the former executive director of the Church Council of Greater Seattle, I've worked with many Episcopal churches over the last 40 years. And so some of my friends may be greeting us from Seattle today. As a member of the Plowshares Pilgrimage 40 years ago today, August 6th, I was part of a group of 17 people beginning a 4-day vigil of prayer and fasting at the Pantex Nuclear Weapons Factory in Amarillo, Texas. We had walked 2,000 miles over the previous 2.5 months, beginning on May 25th on what is called Pentecost in the Christian calendar, the coming of the Holy Spirit. Even though it was 90 degrees outside each day, these were among the most spiritually profound days of my life. The experience was interspiritual. A monk by the name of Ishibashi quietly beat his drum for the entire 2,000 miles. Namum Yoho Rengekyo. Formed in Japan as a Buddhist order for peace, Ishibashi embodied peace in presence and prayer. The experience was intersectional. 40 farm workers seeking a livable wage joined us for the last 2 days, making the connection that a sufficient, sustainable livelihood for all means first that we can enjoy life on the planet, and then that those who help to create abundance can take part in receiving the fruits of that abundance. Our group from Columbia University had been inspired by the works of Thomas Merton, the Bethlehem Peace Pilgrimage, by the nonviolent witness of Plowshare's actions of civil disobedience, saying yes to life and the disarming of nuclear weapons, and by peacemakers such as Brother David Steindl-Rast and Thich Nhat Hanh, who taught us that prayer is an embodied verb rather than a disconnected separation from the world. The great theologian Karl Rahner suggested that contemplation is a long, loving look at the real. From the perspective of the Southern Hemisphere, John Sobrino teaches us that in the face of militaristic, economic, and racial oppression, that prayer is an opening to be honest to reality. For North Americans who have become comfortable with, accepting of, and even worshiping nuclear weapons, despite their ability to annihilate all life on the planet, such honesty in a consumer culture that glorifies greed and violence is often hard to come by. Here I am reminded of the heroism of my late Archbishop Raymond Hunthausen of Seattle, who called our nuclear war preparations the global crucifixion of Jesus, and who was persecuted for his conviction that emerged from deep prayer and reflection. The prophet Micah calls us to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with my God. All of these acts are prayer. The suffering of the Habakkukah show us that solidarity with them requires us to join our voices with theirs in practices and policies and protests to say, never again. In doing so, as the mayor of Hiroshima said today, we are embracing their generosity of love for humanity. To love mercy is to embrace the concept of compassion, which Karen Armstrong calls the universal concern for everybody. And finally, walking humbly with the source of life is an invitation to recognize our own complicity in the nuclear weapons madness and to renew our confidence in this source who accompanies us and creates us anew. Indeed, spirit, compassion, God, source of all being, is the foundation of human security. Pilgrimage is a wonderful expression of prayer. Rather than focused on a singular religious site to which we hasten to arrive, we can also see pilgrimage as a movement of our whole selves where every step is holy. Every step is a manifestation of the peace through nuclear disarmament that we long to see. Peace is the way, says Scripture, Nat Han says peace is every step. Pilgrimage as a way of life opens the door to liberation from the fear, hatred, and despair that has bred the expanding anti-spiritual proliferation of the nuclear weapons industrial complex. As people of peace, we are positioned to dismantle both ideology and hardware that make nuclear warfare an increasing existential threat. With disarmed hearts, minds, hands, and feet, we will recognize our capacity for collaboration with communities of joyful resistance, and we will encounter the power of the audacity to take risks for God's dream of a nuclear disarmed world. Being here, I remember that June 12th marked the 41st anniversary of the mass protest during the UN's second special session on disarmament, which took place in 1982. 1 million people gathered here in this area, Midtown Manhattan in New York City, near the United Nations headquarters, to say yes to nuclear weapons disarmament and no to the expansion of armaments for and the threatening of nuclear war. It was an exhilarating experience, a moment of light and hope. The message that day spoke to the promise of popular will for peace and the power of civil society to effect change. Nuclear weapons are preparations, threat, deployment, and expansion are actions of idolatry. They are despairing of the human ability to resolve conflict without the most violent and destructive response imaginable. Nations' dependence on them for security is pure and simple a manifestation of dis-ease and disorder of the greatest magnitude. It is a type of faith not in the gods of scriptures, but the gods of metal. It is a giving way of resources, power, sanity in order to facilitate and expedite the elimination in part or whole of planet Earth. In the face of nuclear governments failing to fulfill their treaty obligations, let alone their moral ones, a higher power is being drawn out of us, civil society, religious folk, and people of goodwill and conscience, to be faithful to one another, our communities, the people of all nations, and the earth, of which we are a part and of which we are accountable. This call is the call to be fully human in defense of life and the rights of future generations to thrive and to seek the light of the divine source of compassion for human security and for all life in the planet. Prayers toward the elimination of nuclear weapons lead us to action. Conventional thinking persists in first strike mentalities and preparations to win through an ever-growing fortress of deterrence. With our hearts disarmed and our hands joined, the creative capability lies within and among us to unleash a power stronger than the greatest waterfall, indeed greater than the strongest nuclear weapon, to take the steps toward nuclear weapon abolition. Through artistic expression, through protest, through speaking with our legislative representatives, through public forums, we are given this moment to reverse the doomsday clock and to embody the seeds of peace that each of us hold. Specifically, we may renounce the option of using nuclear weapons first. We may cancel the expansion and modernization of the nuclear weapons arsenal. We may lead by example and fulfill existing treaty obligations, resume serious negotiations leading to nuclear disarmament as pledged by the 5 nuclear weapons powers in the 1970 Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. This includes renewing and pursuing bilateral agreements. We can extend and expand the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, or RECA, to add the first downwinders in New Mexico, along with others who were left out of the original bill. We can embrace the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in the United States and where it has not been approved. We are powerful, free people who, like a tree, faithful, standing by the water, cannot be moved. For we are rooted in the divine energy that can, that will, transform swords into plowshares. Let us today celebrate the gift of life with one another. We thank you for your presence, O God, and we sing of the freedom which you promise, and we, with all of our minds, hearts, strength, and soul, pledge to uphold. If today you hear God's voice, harden not your hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And now, we want to take your words and bring our energy, our prayers. You came here today to learn a little bit more about nuclear weapons, but about praying and the power of prayer. Grandfather Harry Bird at the Prayer Vigil for the Earth said, "A heartfelt prayer is more powerful than an atom bomb." So I'm inviting you, each of you, to not only create your own prayer, but to get in touch with what you would pray for, what you want to protect, how nuclear weapons do not make us safer, and what we need to do to take the steps to move forward. And one of them is to pray together. I want to thank the people from St. Bartholomew's who continue to stay here with us, and new people that many of us don't know, but we are about to create a prayer energy in this room that I think can be very, very powerful, because each of you are here because you care, because of the power of prayer, and because we can connect to make a difference. I'm going to invite, I see that Joan is passing things around, and maybe we can pass it a little quicker with a little help. Nancy, could you help Joan take some to the other room, maybe? Unless, Joan, do you want to give it to each person? Joan is dropping off some sage. She's going to invite people to hold. I guess I'm inviting you to hold onto the sage if you'd like to, because this sage is going to be taken back to the waters in her territory. And there was one of the comments that Michael made. Let us add prayers for the indigenous, the lands that were ruined with the bombing and testings, and those that were so impacted in the creation and testing. We thank Joan for adding the prayers and holding those words from people before us. And we want to make sure we get the sage passed out so that you can hold on to it, because we have a very, very special way of carrying your prayers. There are index cards if you'd like to write your prayer down and take it with you or leave it in a bowl. But today, I have the pleasure of reminding you that you're going to not only be praying, you're going to be listening to some of the most wonderful cello music. Michael Fitzpatrick has played the cello with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with Pope Francis. He's received an award from the now King Charles. And we just are so honored to have your time and your talent to be shared with us, to both inspire our prayers, to connect us to one another as we pray, and to really know that your prayer, your heartfelt prayer, is as powerful as an atom bomb. And let us put that energy both into our prayers and into our actions that Michael talked about. I am so honored. Let us bring Michael Fitzpatrick forward. And we are going to have this time in quiet reflection, in listening, and in praying together. And I thank everyone in this room for adding your energy and for being with us today. And I especially thank Jeneth, who I just caught over here. I want you to stand up for just a second. Jeneth has helped us organize this from the beginning. And I want to thank William Swing for traveling from California to be with us, and our incredible speakers, and for St. Bartholomew's and all of you, because together we're going to make a difference. if the bomb started in Manhattan, may we add a new prayer energy that just shifts what's needed right now. Thank you. And I turn it to Michael Fitzpatrick to start, and I ask you to enjoy the music and your own prayers and this collective. Thank you. in intention for a world free of nuclear weapons, to remember the past and to take action so that there is never another nuclear bomb used.
Hear and help this prayer. As we gather as one mind, so it has been done, each of us a separate star that radiates out over countless other stars. Because you know we're stardust, right? Ask a physicist. So that every thought that we think, every word that is spoken, vibrates out through us to everyone around us. And so this small way, this seemingly small way, becomes large. And so we have asked the help of the green nations, the little plant nations, the medicine nations, the medicine nations, to hold what we have prayed, in addition to anything that, if you are a person who writes these things, that you write. I'm going to very gently just walk around and let you put them all together back into the bowl, so that even after we are gone from this place to the rest of our lives, we go different than we came, not just because that's a fact in physics, but because it's a fact of what happens when you allow the resonance of things to permeate you and you become changed like that. So we go out into the world different like that. And my commitment to you is to hold these prayers all together and take them to the highest waterfall in New York State, which is kind of where I live when I'm on this coast. And to give this back to the water beings that we all have in common, so that they can carry it down to Mother Earth, out to Grandmother Ocean. And we are part of all of that, not just two-leggeds, four-legged swimmers, flyers, everything you can think of.
I'm wondering if we can switch it just a little, because we are running to the point when we need to be out of this wonderful building. And I'm going to invite people to come to you. And if we could come, I invite you to just take a moment to kind of gather your prayers, because we want you to be ready to leave as you put your sage, your prayers, your thoughts into the bowl for Joan.
Not for me, for my great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
And all my animals at home, and my trees, and the waters, and all of us. Place it in the bowl. Don't toss it in the bowl. We didn't come here like that.
Can I give an example?
Just like Monica.
I thank everyone for being here, for adding your prayers, and for continuing to add your prayers. And if you want to add more, take one of these and pray the nuclear prayer with us, please. Thank you all for being here.
You said she's from some territory. What is it?
If I could say it, I would tell you.